Well, we're getting a latest update from the Supreme Court on the CBI versus CBI infighting case. That verdict is expected anytime soon now, but what we hear is that a two-judge bench comprising Justice S.K. Kaul, Justice K.M. Joshi is expected to deliver the order, because what we hear is that the Chief Justice of India is on leave. So the Supreme Court is to decide the fate of Alok Verma today. We have with us Advocate Sumit Chandar, who is in the studios with us. Sumit, so what we're hearing, before I come to you, Sumit, Anand Patel, in fact, our correspondent, is outside the Supreme Court. Anand, so what are you hearing anytime soon now? 10:30 was the time when the verdict was expected. But Ranjan Gogoi is on leave. He's in fact the one who went through the entire proceedings. He's the one who went through the entire case and the hearings. Has it been confirmed that the verdict will be announced today by the two-judge bench?
Yes, you know, Avantika, since the Chief Justice Ranjan Gogoi is on leave, so the other two judges would be present to just pronounce the verdict, because the hearing is already complete and the verdict was reserved in December itself. So it's just a formality, it's just a verdict which is to be pronounced today. So Justice S.K. Paul will be pronouncing the judgment. So it's just a formality. So even if the Chief Justice is not present in the court, doesn't make much of a difference, because the verdict was reserved and verdict had been written. So it's just the two parties which have to be informed about the verdict. So, you know, it's just a formality. Secondly, the manner in which, you know, during the hearing, the CJI had commented and made observations on the government's decision to send the two top officials, including the CBI Director Alok Verma, on leave. The Chief Justice had, you know, asked the government as to what was the urgency that the CBI Director was sent on leave when the controversy and the cat fight between the two was going on since July. So the government took so much time, and then why were the procedures not followed? So if the observations are to be looked at, you know, there could be a verdict in the favor of Alok Verma. And it will be a landmark judgment, given the fact that, you know, the 2 years mandate which the CBI director gets, it will not be, you know, tempered with by the government of the day. And the procedures would be followed from there on. This is what we expect. But the government has been making a point that the cat fight was damaging the institution of national repute, was damaging the day-to-day functioning of the CBI, and that's why they had to go on with this decision, haste decision as they call it. It remains to be seen what the CBI, what the Chief Justice of India has written in his verdict. In a short while from now, any moment, we can hear from inside the courtroom.
Absolutely. Let me go straight across now to India Today's Polami Saha. It's a very important day, Polami, an important verdict. We're just hearing that the bench of Justice S.K. Kaul and Justice K.M. Joseph is expected to pronounce the verdict. What are you hearing from the court? Have the judges arrived at the court? When can we expect the verdict?
The judges have arrived, Avantika. The bench is, in fact, has sat down, and any moment from now, you will be hearing from courtroom number 12 because the CJI is not present and all of his cases are heard in courtroom number 1. Today, this judgment will be pronounced by Justice S.K. Kaul, who was part of the three-judge bench, which heard this matter extensively until it reserved its order on December 6th for today. So what we're hearing is that the judge, Justice S.K. Kaul, who is sitting in courtroom number 12 with Justice L. Nageshwar Rao, in fact, Justice Kaul will be pronouncing that order. So, what we are hearing right now from my colleague Sanjay Sharma, who's inside the courtroom number 12 right now, he says that the justice, in fact, of course, Justice S.K. Kaul, because he's part of the original bench which heard this matter, has started reading out the final verdict on it. We're just waiting for the news points that are coming in and the final verdict as to whether Alok Verma will, in fact, be reinstated as CBI Director or not today. That remains to be seen. Just waiting for those you know, those words to come out of the courtroom number 12.
Absolutely. And as you were speaking, we've just got an update that, Sumit, the judges have started pronouncing the verdict. So anytime soon now, any minute, we're going to hear from the court. And this was a very detailed hearing of the exiled CBI Director Alok Verma's petition challenging the government's decision to divest him of all responsibilities, duties, and sending him on leave. But it's interesting that, you know, the Chief Justice of India is not present today. He's on leave because he was the the one who went through those detailed hearings, court hearings, and heard everybody's response on this very important matter.
See, it's okay. See, what happens is Supreme Court, the 3 judges bench, the Chief Justice has passed the order. The other judges have also authored it. Now, once he's signed the order, he's made it final from his end. Pronouncement can be done by either one of the judges present during the proceedings or who's been partly the author of that judgment. So nothing wrong if the chief is not present today. He must have passed the order, passed the judgment, signed it, and today is not present, doesn't make a difference once it is signed and ready. So it's just the pronouncement today which is done by Justice Kaul, and I think it's reasonable enough to do so.
Absolutely. The CBI war getting only murkier. Dr. Karthikeyan, former director with the CBI. Sir, you know, your thoughts as the entire war was playing out, this full-blown, unprecedented turf war between the 2 senior-most officers. One of the biggest charges against the government today by the opposition is that, you know, they could have sorted out the affairs a long time ago. And you know, the charge is that why did they allow matters to escalate in this fashion? Isn't it unfortunate that today we're hearing from the Supreme Court about the 2 senior-most officers of the CBI? Mr. Karthikeyan, can you hear me? All right, let me go straight across to Aishwarya. We'll try and establish contact with Dr. Karthikeyan. Aishwarya, but you know, one of the foremost charges of the Congress is that the move to divest Alok Verma was unconstitutional. In fact, your party had said that that decision was unequivocally incorrect. It was wrong. Do you maintain the same? Because there has been now a very detailed hearing in the Supreme Court, and it's an important day. The verdict is going to be out anytime soon.
I believe that even if you look at the observations made by the learned judges of the Supreme Court, all of them asked the same thing. What was the emergency? What was such a pressing need to have done something unprecedented, you know, legally? And that is the same question. The Congress party is not supporting either party here. We're basically supporting the fact that due process and the procedure held by law is something that has to be followed. Because we've seen discrepancies time and time again, especially in the CBI from 2015 when Mr. Rakesh Asthana was appointed suddenly as interim chief and then was removed and then made special director while the post didn't even exist. And I think for us that is more crucial. And the Supreme Court on a lot of counts has agreed with what the Indian National Congress has also spoken about, that there was a procedure that was established which was bypassed. The Solicitor General and the government just have to prove how it was all right. But if today the Supreme Court believes that the action of the government and the CVC are tenable under law, then it's setting a very bad precedent, because it tells you that you can say anything was an emergency situation, anything was extremely crucial for to be done at that point, and you can bypass
that the verdict in whosever favor it goes will have a definitive bearing on the institution. Absolutely. And you know, the autonomy that the CBI enjoys. Do you think it'll have an impact?
Depending on how it goes, if they hold that this appointment was legal, and I mean this absence of leave being forced on these officers was legal, then you realize you're allowing the government to do whatever they want by just saying there was an emergency, there was an urgent need to do it. However, if the court does not uphold that and they basically reinstate Mr. Alok Verma, then the law as it stands is there. Then the CVC can move and have the selection committee to remove him if they want. That is what we're asking. If you find any discrepancies or any charges of fraud or anything that is not suitable to his office, take action, but take action in the right means is what we are pushing for. However, the Supreme Court is going to either add to jurisprudence or uphold the law, and good conscience at this point is what we feel.
And it's unfortunate, isn't it, Syed Zafar Islam, that the CBI is facing this kind of unprecedented crisis of credibility. You had Andhra Pradesh, you had West Bengal immediately refusing permission to the CBI to investigate, you know, cases in their domain, in their jurisdiction. I mean, isn't that embarrassing enough for an institution like the CBI?
See, any institutions, we are absolutely clear. The government has not once advocated and repeatedly that the institution which enjoys independence, they should be work independently without any interference from the government. We have never interfered, we will never interfere. But the embarrassment was about the CBI earlier when the Honorable Supreme Court had made observation about the case period. At that point in time, the Congress and the UPA government was not feeling bad. The entire country was surprised. But all I'm saying today that this is the institution which not only CBI, all the institution which enjoys complete freedom of functioning, they should continue without any interference from the government, and we have always advocated, we followed it, we practice it. We do not preach, we practice, unlike the UPA government which only preach, but they do not practice. They in fact concoct stories, use these agencies to cover up.
All right. Thank you so much, Saeed Zafar Islam. Just stay on with me, please. I'm just going to go straight across now, first to our correspondents. Anand, what are you hearing from the court? We're getting in a lot of updates. Just take us through some of them.
Well, the update is that as you rightly said, that Chief Justice of India is on leave today, and so the verdict will be pronounced by Justice S.K. Kaul. And secondly, the bench has already arrived at the courtroom, and the verdict is being read out. We've not got any updates so far. But given the fact that there was some speculation a little while ago that whether the verdict would be out today or not, the lawyers present here are experts, and they're saying that this is nothing unprecedented, since the verdict was reserved and the Chief Justice has gone through the entire hearing process and he has dictated the verdict. So it's just a formality today that the verdict would be read out by the number 2 judge in the bench. The judge bench which heard the entire case, went through the entire proceedings. It's just left for them to pronounce the verdict today. So it's just a formality, and it will be out any moment now as we speak, Avantika. And given the fact that the observations made by the Chief Justice during the hearing were very strong against the government, the manner in which it hastily sent CBI director on forced leave. The questions asked to the government were, what was the urgency, since the controversy was raging on for a couple of months, and then in October, all of a sudden, without following these set procedures, without following the norms, that the leader of the opposition and the Chief Justice himself, member of the appointing committee of the CBI director, were not taken into confidence, and the government just went ahead with sending the CBI director to leave. Any moment we can hear the verdict, any time it can be pronounced.
All right, let me go straight across to Polami as well. Polami, a lot of important updates, information coming in with the court also saying that it cannot be oblivious to the directions contained in the Vineet Narayan judgment. That's one of the updates coming in. And the big question, whether the government was wrong in its decision to send the CBI director Alok Verma on leave. What are you hearing from your sources? What's the latest update?
Well, that's right, Avantika. You read out one of those news points which is coming from courtroom number 12, which is about the Vineet Narayan judgment. Extremely significant because CBI Director Alok Verma's counsel, Fali Nariman, had very categorically stated the Vineet Narayan judgment during his submissions before the court, which is the 1997 verdict, which fixed the tenure of the CBI Director for 2 years so that the Director could work with complete independence, and there was no interference from the government coming in. So it basically says court cannot be oblivious to the directions contained in the Vineet Narayan judgment. Mode and manner of appointment of the director CBI laid down by Vineet Narayan judgment scrupulously followed by the legislature. SC is dealing with various reports and discussions in Parliament while passing the DSPE Act, which is the Delhi Special Police Act, which basically fixes the term of the CBI director. The DSPE Act intended for complete insulation of a director CBI from political interference. Remember that this has been authored by CJI Ranjan Gogoi, what Justice S.K. Kaul right now is reading out in court. DSPE Act intended for complete insulation of director CBI from political interference. Removal of the incumbents has been spelled out in the CVC Act. No specific provision regarding director CBI has been spelled out. If there was intent to specify interim measures for director CBI, then the legislation would have contained the provision. CBI has been necessarily kept away from interference to continue investigation without fear or favor. So the Supreme Court so far seems to be stressing on the need for the CBI director to function with complete independence, hence the fixing of tenure for 2 years.
Is big. This is huge. Sumit, I'm going to bring you in here. Just take a look at what we are getting to here. Removal of the incumbent has been spelt out in the CVC Act, a charge that was made by the Congress as well. Just why was the committee not convened? Why was the decision taken without the concurrence of the leader of the opposition and the Chief Justice of India? This is a very important observation. Supreme Court ruling against the government's decision of divesting all responsibility and powers of the CBI Director Alok Verma.
See, like I said earlier also, Supreme Court is to hold the constitutional, uphold the constitutional rights of every citizen of the country. And one of the main important things to be seen here is that there is a proper procedure laid down under the Constitution for appointment of a director of a CBI, where a committee, a high-powered committee is set out, which includes the leader of opposition, the ruling party, as well as the Chief Justice of India. Now, just because they could not have done the entire procedure to appoint at such short notice a new director.
So it seems that the government's move did violate the Supreme Court's ruling in a sense.
In a way, I would say it had tried to bypass it by appointing an interim director, which had no provision.
Just kindly stay on with me. I'll just come to you shortly. Anand Patel is also joining us. Anand, some very important, information coming in. Just take us through all the updates. Polami also just gave us some information. What's the latest that you have? And Polami, this is a big victory. The Supreme Court reinstating the exiled CBI chief, and a big victory for Alok Verma, and a major setback and an embarrassment for the government, isn't it?
Absolutely. The big breaking news which seems to be coming in from courtroom number 12 of the Supreme Court of India is that Alok Verma has been reinstated as CBI director. So Alok Verma wins this case against the government of India. Huge relief coming in for Alok Verma, who had challenged his, transfer, him being sent on forced leave, being divested of all powers as a CBI director in the month of October. 2 days later, he had approached the Supreme Court, challenged this, and now the Supreme Court coming out in favor of Alok Verma. The three-judge bench which heard that matter, of course, pronouncing the order. One of them, Justice Sanjay Kaul, has in fact pronounced that order. And what we're hearing right now is that the Supreme Court, in fact, there are various points, as I was pointing out to you, Avantika, in terms of the highlights of the order which has been authored by Chief Justice of India, Ranjan Gogoi, in this matter. The CJI has also said some more points coming in, has also said a high-powered committee of the Prime Minister.
Some reactions are coming in. I'll just come back to you. Let's just play out those reactions.
रही है, और अगर कोई न्याय के प्रक्रिया के खिलाफ जाता है या उसे सबवर्ट करने की कोशिश करता है, तो ये सुप्रीम कोर्ट हमेशा मौजूद है. Just one second, please.
For information coming in, Supreme Court saying that the high-powered committee of the Prime Minister, the CJI, and the leader of the opposition is now to look into the action against Verma if required. Aishwarya, the Congress spokesperson, is with us. Saeed Zafar Islam from the BJP. Aishwarya, quick reaction from you before I go back to our correspondents.
What the International Congress has stated is being vindicated, because inevitably what we'd stated is that the move was illegal and then the chief should be reinstated. This is not because we favor anyone, because we had the problem with his appointment in the first place. The Indian National Congress stood for procedure. We highlighted the illegality, and I believe today the Supreme Court has done its duty, has read the legislation, and has also seen that the government does not commit excesses through the use of saying urgent need or emergency or pressing need.
Sanjay Hegde is also speaking right now. We'll just cut across and listen in first.
Being defended. If the court had insulated the CBI against, and the CBI director against interference, trying to subvert that decision of the Supreme Court in the Vineet Narayan's case by sending the CBI director on leave was simply not on. The Supreme Court today has reiterated the importance and the independence of the CBI director's office. I do not see it solely as a victory for Mr. Alok Verma, who will be reinstated, but I see it as a victory for the independence of investigative agencies in this country.
Whether they are reiterating the 2-year minimum assurance period in this judgment also?
The 2-year minimum period was first set down by the Supreme Court in the Vineet Narayan judgment. Thereafter, it was brought in by Parliament by statute. This government sought to dilute it by sending the CBI director on leave. This court has struck down that action. I see it once again as a victory not for Mr. Verma alone, but for independent functioning of institutions in this country.
Mr. Verma has not got much time left, so do you see this period which is lost, the service period which he lost as direct functioning in the CBI? Do you would you seek, he be given more time with the CBI? Is that a possibility?
That is all for Mr. Verma and the government to work out. Mr. Verma, I have known him as a client, is a fine gentleman. He will always act independently. That is all that this judgment requires him to do, and that is the way he will act. Thank you.
Big one coming in there. The Supreme Court reinstating CBI Director Alok Verma as the CBI chief. Let me go first to our correspondents, Paulami and Anand Patel. Paulami, Sanjay Hegde making a very important point. He doesn't see this as a victory for Mr. Alok Verma, but sees it as a triumph and a victory for the independent functioning of our investigating agencies. So this is perhaps, a very important statement and an important message he's sending out there.
Absolutely. This is exactly why the Vineet Narayan judgment of 1997 was being cited by Alok Verma's counsel, Fali Nariman, in court as far as this entire case is concerned. That there was a reason that, all of this was linked into Vineet Narayan dealt with allegations of corruption against high-ranking public officials. And then, of course, came the order which basically fixed the tenure of the CBI director for 2 years so that the CBI director could function with complete independence and there was no government or political interference in the functioning. The CBI director could work without fear or favor, and that is what has been upheld today. The high-powered committee, which of course is includes the Prime Minister, the CJI himself in this matter, and of course the leader of opposition, will look into any sort of if at all any sort of action is needed against Alok Verma because of the allegations against him. Hence he cannot take any major policy decisions despite his reinstatement today. But like Advocate Sanjay Hegde was pointing out over there, what this reaffirms is that the CBI director needs to function as an independent authority in terms of investigations, and there won't be any sort of arbitrary measures that are taken in order to divest the CBI director of his responsibilities and duties without any consultation of the select committee, and that select committee includes the CJI.
Absolutely, and that was one of the main charges of the opposition, primarily that of the Congress party. Anand Patel, a big win there for Alok Verma. He has been reinstated as the CBI chief by the Supreme Court. What does that mean for Alok Verma? And has the Supreme Court laid out what his responsibilities with it? Because we've just heard that the Supreme Court has clearly quashed the orders of the CVC and the DOPT against Alok Verma, divesting him of all responsibilities.
Well, certainly, yes, big win there for Alok Verma. The CBI director was sent on forced leave. The Supreme Court has made it clear that the government didn't have the mandate. It's just the select committee which can take such decisions. The decision is in favor of Alok Verma, but it has come with a rider that he cannot take any major decision till the high-power select committee decides on the action taken on him. So clearly it comes with a rider. Not much time there left for Alok Verma to join office and begin his day-to-day function. But clearly a big victory, big judgment here, coming in favor of the independence of the CBI, there. So very important, very critical. And my courtroom correspondent is also here. Anisha, just take us through what are the details of this verdict.
Well, see, effectively what the court has said that because the law is clear, the Delhi Special Police Act and the CVC Act as well as the Lokpal Act clearly lay down the way that the certain office bearers have immunity. They can, their tenure and their work has to be kept insulated. Director CBI is one of those officials, and because there is no provision in the current law to send the Director CBI on leave in this manner, that the fact that he's been sent on indefinite leave may amount to a transfer which cannot be done without the high-powered committee's approval. That is why the court has reinstated Alok Verma and has said that the high-power committee, which is the Prime Minister, the CJI and the Leader of Opposition, have to sit down and consider the allegations raised against Alok Verma. However, Alok Verma has been reinstated, but he cannot take any major policy decisions in the few weeks that he has left.
That's very crucial. He cannot take any major decisions. That's very crucial, isn't it?
Well, yes, the court has said very clearly that because the high-powered committee is now going to be looking into the allegations that have been raised, because the CVC report exists, there are allegations and counter-allegations between Alok Verma and Rakesh Asthana. The high-powered committee will now have to look into what has to be done, if any action has to be taken against Verma or not. Until such date as the high-powered committee takes a decision, Alok Verma cannot take any major policy decisions.
Big verdict there on the independence of the CBI there, Avantika. You know, this is a landmark judgment. Clearly setting aside the government's decision, which was taken in a haste. Even the CJI, during his observations when the proceedings were on, had made it clear, asked the government as to what was the haste when the controversy was going on for quite some time. Why couldn't the High Power Select Committee sit down and decide on the fate of the CBI director? Why was the government arbitrarily taking a decision, and then later on the CVC was asked to file a report on this? So all these has been taken into consideration coming to this landmark verdict
Absolutely.
today.
Supreme Court, they're quashing the CVC's order that actually has no jurisdiction to appoint or even remove a CBI officer. Malika Arjun Khadke, in fact, is presently speaking. Let's cut across and listen in.
अपने को चाहने जो जॉइंट डायरेक्टर थे या एडिशनल डायरेक्टर थे, उनको जगह बनाने के लिए इन्होंने कोशिश की, लेकिन ये वेलकम है कि सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने इसको कंप्लीटली रिव्यू करके फिर रेस्टोर किया। ये एक उनको सरकार को भी एक सबक सिखाया गया कि अगर गलत चीज़ें हम करेंगे तो कोर्ट भी हमको नहीं बख्शेगा, और अगर कोर्ट में भी एक आधा उनको रिलीफ मिलती है तो जनता तो उनको कभी बख्शाती नहीं।
Right, let me go straight across now to Syed Zafar Islam from the BJP. Sir, that's the big news. Alok Verma has been restored as the CBI chief. Your government's order has been cancelled. It has been put aside. And you know, the most important part is that people are today saying, the lawyers out there, that this is a day to celebrate as far as the independence of the institution's functionings are concerned. How do you respond?
Well, there are two things. First, that whatever is the verdict of CBI, of course, the government has to respect, all of us have to respect the verdict of the Supreme Court. But it comes with a rider, and of course, the select committee will examine whatever decision he has taken, whatever the allegation against him has to be examined, and that is something which will determine why the government had to take that action. And we will also study the entire judgment and make an appropriate comment about it. But right now, all I can say that since the Supreme Court verdict is in front of us, and all of us have to accept it without making any hue and cry, because that's a judgment which has come from the Honorable Supreme Court. But it has come with a rider, which is important, which you are not highlighting, that it has come with a rider. He cannot function.
Okay, the rider
like
is that Alok Verma cannot take any major policy decisions. We are mentioning that, Syed Zafar Islam. But Aishwarya, today Alok Verma stands vindicated. He has won at least this fight. He has emerged victorious in his fight against Rakesh Asthana, his second-in-command officer. This was such a public feud that had to reach the Supreme Court, with the Supreme Court today deciding in Alok Verma's favor.
I think that at the end of the day, that there was a procedure that should have been followed, which was not. which is a huge setback for the government, whether or not Mr. Alok Verma is allowed to make policy decisions. Now they will go back to the High Power Committee and check whether there has been any sort of malfeasance or any sort of untoward actions on the part of the directors. And that, I think, is extremely important. The rider that Mr. Syed Zafar Islam would like to talk about exists, yes, but the one thing I would like to point out is that this sends a message to the government that there is a procedure established by law, there is due process, something that which under any condition cannot be crossed, and that is very important because we've seen the sort of denigration of institutions. So today is not only a victory for Mr. Alok Verma, which is good for him, and let's see what the High Power Committee says, but it's also a victory for the fact that the law has been upheld and the procedure has been upheld, and the Indian National Congress on its stands vindicated at the end of it.
Absolutely. D.R. Karthikeyan, former director with the CBI, has also been with us. He's been patiently hearing all the reactions. Sir, how do you respond to the big news coming in? Alok Verma being reinstated as the CBI chief with the earlier orders now being quashed by the Apex Court.
I am not at all surprised. This was the verdict I expected because it was obvious. And the very first day when the crisis was reported, my reaction was this. I also said, it's unfortunate it happened at the highest level in the CBI, but it was going for several months. The CVC, on whom the responsibility and authority was bestowed on by the law, he could have intervened and perhaps he had done his best. But when he knew it was beyond him, he could have reported to the government during the daytime or much earlier, and the government would have had the opportunity of convening the committee, and the decision would have been taken by the committee as a whole. Because the government, minus the Chief Justice of India, being there, cannot have taken the decision. It was obvious, it was not correct. I said so on the first day. Now here the verdict which has come is not surprise to me. It was the only decision that could have been taken under the law.
Okay.
So both the CVC and the government were ill-advised in taking the decision what they did at the midnight or early morning. Now it's not a question of victory or loss to anybody. The independence of the Office of the Director CBI, which is of utmost importance, has been restored. And the 2-year tenure of the Director CBI is inviolable unless the committee as a whole, which had the authority to appoint, meets and decides.
And that is the statutory committee that has to now meet and decide on the responsibilities for Mr. Alok Verma in the light of this recent verdict. Sumit, a quick word from you and your understanding of just how the orders of the CVC and the DOPT now today stands quashed, it stands cancelled, and Alok Verma, interestingly, not really having the powers to make any major policy decision just as yet.
See, it's not only him. At the time of issuing notice also, the court had curbed in this very same manner the powers of the interim director who was appointed. The idea is that today also the policy decisions, not his normal work, please pay attention to that, not his normal regular work is not being curbed. Only major policy decisions is the word terminology used by the Supreme Court. Now, what is the purpose for this? The Supreme Court is now saying that there is a high-powered committee which is under law required to take such decisions. Let that committee be formed again, and whatever further decisions are to be taken with respect to Alok Kumar, that can be taken by the committee, which is the appropriate authority to do so. So Supreme Court at this stage has carefully stepped out of it, taken a step back and said, listen, as of now you are reinstated because the order of sending him to leave was wrong. However, today, though you are appointed back, decisions on what powers will be given to you or policy decision making powers will be decided by the rightful authority, which is the high powered committee.
All right. And what comprises the high powered committee? Anisha, you've been outside the Supreme Court. Is it going to be the committee that comprises... All right. Before I come to you, Anisha, Prashant Bhushan is speaking right now to the media. Let's cut across and listen in.
Someone grabs the...
या नीचे बैठ जाओ. So the the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court has today quashed. The Supreme Court has today quashed the government's decision and the CVC's decision to divest Shri Alok Verma of the powers of CBI director, and they have restored him as CBI director. But strangely, despite quashing the orders divesting him of CBI director and despite restoring him, the court has said that he will not take any major policy decisions till such time that this high-powered committee of the Prime Minister, Leader of Opposition and Chief Justice meets and considers the matter. They have directed the government to bring this matter before this high-powered committee within a week, and till that time they say the restored director Sri Alok Verma will not take any major policy decisions. So it's a case of partial victory for Sri Alok Verma in the sense that he has been restored, the order removing him has been quashed, the order appointing Nageshwar Rao as the acting director has also been quashed, but unfortunately and strangely he has been restrained, from taking major policy decisions. So his full powers have not been restored. आज सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने सरकार का और सीवीसी का निर्णय श्री आलोक वर्मा को सीबीआई डायरेक्टर के पद से हटाने का उसको क्वॉश कर दिया है, उसको रद्द कर दिया है और श्री आलोक वर्मा को सीबीआई डायरेक्टर की तरह रिस्टोर कर दिया है। लेकिन साथ में कोर्ट ने ये भी बोल दिया है कि सरकार इस मामले को हाई पावर्ड कमेटी, जिसमें कि प्रधानमंत्री, लीडर ऑफ ऑपोजिशन और चीफ जस्टिस होते हैं, उसके सामने एक हफ्ते में लाए और जब तक वो हाई पावर्ड कमेटी इस पर निर्णय ना ले तब तक श्री आलोक वर्मा कोई मेजर पॉलिसी का फैसला नहीं लेंगे। तो उनको रिस्टोर करने के बाद भी उनकी पावर पूरी तरह से रिस्टोर नहीं करी गई है।
सर, विनीत नारायण को अपहोल्ड किया है सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने।
नहीं, इसमें कोई अपील नहीं होता।
Sir, even though they are reiterating the Narayan case, the net result is nothing, basically twisting the matter. So what you felt?
Well, net result is something, but as I said, you see, once they quash the order divesting him and they hold that this is totally illegal, totally against the law, totally against the Supreme Court judgment in Vineet Narayan's case, they ought to have restored him with full powers. What was the need for saying that he will not take any major policy decision till such time that the matter is considered by the high-powered committee? There is no such provision in law.
So what does it mean now that he cannot take a policy decision? Does that mean that...
Can you look at files? Can you look at cases?
Yes, yes. In my view, his taking normal decisions of registering FIRs, proceeding with criminal cases that are pending with the CBI or complaints that are pending with the CBI, those are certainly not major policy decisions. Those are routine decisions of CBI functioning, and it certainly does not prevent Shri Alok Verma from taking decisions to register FIRs in fresh complaints or in any cases that come up before him. Those are certainly not major policy decisions.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, let me go straight across now to Vaibhav Agarwal, who's representing the BJP. Sir, at the time of the government's decision to divest Alok Verma of all of his duties and responsibilities and sending him on forced leave, the government said that this was done to maintain the institutional integrity and credibility. How do you respond today? The Supreme Court setting aside that decision, the order of the government, and reinstating Alok Verma as the CBI chief?
You know, Avantika, it is first of all, let me set the record straight. What Prashant Bhushan just said, that the orders of the government have been quashed. No, they've not been quashed, they've been set aside. That is point number one. Two, Alok Verma was not divested of his rights and responsibilities. Alok Verma was sent on leave. Now, there is a provision in the Department of Personnel that any officer of Government of India can be sent on leave. You know, if there is A, an investigation, B, a complaint, and it is within the prerogative and the rights of the government to do so. So it is not a big deal. It is not a victory for anyone. It is not a loss for anyone. It is an executive order, and which has been set aside by another executive, by the judiciary. So I mean, the whole myth against trying to put the government in a corner. Of course, the panel is supreme at the end of the day. The Supreme Court has been very categorical in their partial order that we've been able to hear from the media.
Yes.
I'm still waiting for the final order lines and the final paragraph.
But you know, web of the charge has been that this was done in haste. And the decision to divest him or to send him on leave
back to
in the midst of a crisis was done without the consultation of a committee. It was done without the concurrence of the leader of the opposition and the Chief Justice of India.
No, that's not right.
But today that has been upheld, isn't it?
Right. See, you see, the government has two hats to wear. One is administrative. Sorry?
But today that stands true, isn't it? All of those charges, it has been upheld that the decision was taken in haste and without the concurrence.
No, not at all. Avantika.
Yes. Yes, Vaibhav.
No, not at all. The government wears two hats. One is administrative hat and the other one is the executive hat. The order for sending him on leave was purely administrative. It is not executive. If the selection committee is covered under the executive order by all legal means, and that's why the executive has been asked to peruse the appointment and the rights and the extension, if there is any, for Alok Verma to look into. The administrative body still remains intact. The administrative order, which has to be considered by the executive, the both have to go hand in hand. So don't misinterpret this. The leave that was given to Alok Verma was purely administrative perspective. There was no haste. There were two senior officers fighting. Number one and number two were fighting. They were complaining against each other. Don't you know that if even in private sector, if there is a complaint received against a corporate employee, the corporate employee is sent on leave or suspended till further investigation.
Why were things allowed to escalate? All right, Vaibhav, just kindly stay on with me. KV Dhananjay is also joining us on the broadcast. Mr. Dhananjay, how do you respond to the events that unfolded just a short while ago, the big verdict coming in favor of Alok Verma, who has now been restored as the CBI chief?
Well, I think this is a huge setback for the central government for two reasons. One is that
yes, go ahead.
The central government made a huge mistake, and I hope that they will recognize the mistake that they've committed. First and foremost, I just heard the BJP spokesperson say things that seem so strange in relation to what has been passed by the Supreme Court. For all practical purposes, there is no difference between quashing and setting aside. I don't know why the BJP party is making big bones about it. Number one. Number two, if they still do not recognize that the Supreme Court has sent a slap to their decision, then I think God save this country. The office of the CBI director is one of great power, and it requires to be insulated from executive interference. And that is the reason why the Supreme Court has done what it has done this morning. There's too much of echoing here.
All right, we'll fix that. Pallavi Sharma from the Congress is also joining us. Pallavi, your reactions to the big news of Mr. Alok Verma being reinstated, he's being restored, but interestingly, he still cannot take any major policy decisions.
See, I was just listening to Mr. Vaibhav Agarwal Avantika, and I think he's been reading some other judgment that has been passed, or he totally chooses to close his eyes to what has come of the Supreme Court judgment today. What the Supreme Court has said is this, that what the Congress party had been saying from day one. We stand vindicated. Why? Because we said that the entire midnight coup that was organized by this government was in a haste and was totally violative of all the laws, is proven correct by the Supreme Court now. The Supreme Court said that you could not have bypassed the high-powered select committee, and the Supreme Court, that is why, has divested Alok Verma of taking all major policy decisions. The reason being that the select committee is authorized to decide on that, and the BJP government, when it bypassed that select committee, it acted in complete violation of the law. Point number one. Point number two, now the question that stands is this. If violating the select power committee has been held violative of laws by the Supreme Court, why did the government act in such a haste? Now can they answer that the Congress party that had been raising the question was this, that only to save itself from Rafale investigation, the government acted in midnight coup.
Are you suggesting that the government had interfered in the functioning of the CBI director, without taking the high-powered committee along with them?
No, Avantika, that is what the Supreme Court has also said today. That you couldn't have bypassed the high-powered committee. The select committee couldn't have been bypassed, and you have to go back to the select committee so Alok Verma can be given all his powers back, right? Right. The question is this. Now the government has to answer on what was the haste. Why did they organize such a midnight coup? What was the rush? Clearly, you couldn't have bypassed the select committee. Now that is proven. Now can we at least say that it was only because you wanted to stop the Rafale investigation? Hence, you decided that the CBI director should also be removed.
I'll just ask him that question in a bit. But before that, let me just go straight across now to our reporters. In fact, they have been keeping track of all of the proceedings inside the court since the early morning hours. Anisha, coming to you first now. What happens next? He's been reinstated, restored as the CBI chief. Alok Verma, a big victory, many say. But interestingly, Sanjay Hegde is saying that this is only a partial victory since he still cannot make major policy decisions. So what happens from here on? Paulami, if you can hear me, tell us, what will happen next? We believe that now the matter is with a high-powered committee. They will have to decide on the responsibilities and the duties of Alok Verma, who's been reinstated as the CBI chief.
The high-powered committee, which consists of the Prime Minister of India, the Leader of Opposition and the Chief Justice of India, has been requested to meet within 1 week's time to decide if any action should be taken against CBI Director Alok Verma. Remember, he has been reinstated by the Supreme Court today, of course, with the rider that he cannot take any major policy decisions till the time he holds this position. He retires January 31st, so he cannot take any major policy decisions. Of course, he can continue to perform his normal, regular functions, but the high-powered committee, which consists of the PM, the Leader of Opposition and the Chief Justice of India, have been requested to meet within 1 week's time in order to decide if any sort of action should be taken against Mr. Alok Verma vis-a-vis the allegations of corruption against him.
Absolutely. And Anand, we've just been hearing and reading about the infighting within the CBI. It has only been murkier by the day with, this infighting turning out into a full-blown war when the CBI registered an FIR against Rakesh Asthana. But today, this is perceived to be at least a big victory for Alok Verma, who's been reinstated. Tell us, what else are you hearing from the two-judge bench? What are you hearing from the Supreme Court and the kind of reactions coming in from all of the lawyers?
We just heard Prashant Bhushan, one of the appealants in this case, and he was calling it a partial victory, Avantika. The reason being that the powers have been curtailed. He'll not be able to take any major policy decision. Now, we asked him as to what this could mean. He just took a guess, and he said that the routine FIRs could be filed. He can look into files. He can take into consideration the kind of job which is being carried out on a day-to-day basis, but no policy decision, major policy decision. Now this still remains to come to light as to what does this means on the ground once the CBI Director Alok Verma reaches the CBI headquarters. what are the decisions he can take, what he cannot. And also the rider is that the High Power Select Committee would meet within a week. So not much time left for Alok Verma. His retirement is very close. Lost a considerable amount of time. And given the fact that the Congress has been charging the government that they wanted to avoid the Rafale FIR, so that clearly is not on the table. And also, what about the transfers of the key officials who are looking into the cases of Asthana? So clearly there are a lot of ambiguity which needs to be sorted out, which needs to be cleared. We are yet to see the detailed judgment as to what are the do's and don'ts for Alok Verma. But one thing is very clear, Avantika. The rule of law has prevailed. Yes. The Supreme Court has made it clear that the CBI director enjoys legislative immunity.
Absolutely. The rule of law indeed has prevailed, Tanushree, but the charges still remain. Charges of corruption against Alok Verma, who has been reinstated. And remember, at a time, the Supreme Court had also observed on the CVC's report as the charges being very complimentary on a few and not so complimentary on a few charges. What does this mean for Alok Verma? What remains to be seen from here on? What happens next? When will the high-powered committee come together to decide on what his roles will be in the next few days?
You know, Avantika, I'm right now outside the CBI headquarters, where according to the government, just a month back, there was a fight which was going on between two Kilkenny cats, and that was their defense to send Alok Verma and Asthana on forced leave. But today, yet again, judiciary has to intervene. Judiciary has to step in to tell the government in a way through its verdict that institutions and agencies should be left independent. And this is what happened today in the court, Avantika, where Supreme Court overturned government's order to divest Alok Verma of his powers and in fact reinstated him, restored him as the CBI chief. But as Anand has rightly mentioned, that his powers though has been curtailed. And right now coming to a question of what happens next, what is the next future course of action for Alok Verma, though Alok Verma definitely will be restored as the CBI chief. He will, with immediate effect, he will take his post back, but definitely his powers has been curtailed by the Supreme Court. A high power committee which includes the Prime Minister, Chief Justice of India and the leader of opposition, they have been requested by the Supreme Court to meet within a week and decide the future course of action as to the corruption case is concerned against Alok Verma. But definitely with immediate effect, Alok Verma will take his post back in the CBI headquarters here in Delhi, Avantika.
All right, just to inform our viewers, Congress has also put out this tweet now. They say, and I quote, that we welcome the Supreme Court's verdict lambasting the government against their illegal removal of Alok Verma as the CBI director. Congress saying that the Supreme Court has reinstated Alok Verma as director. A couple of reactions are also coming in. Let's just play them out before I go to our guests.
They're trying to use administrative machinery to settle their political scores. And I think if BJP will understand the message, underlying message, the Supreme Court, this is a first step in a direction to rein in the government, which was totally using this machinery to settle their own political scores.
Oh, very good news. Thank you. Is there no doubt? ये तो बहुत बड़ा झटका है. इस लोग का शिक्षा लेना चाहिए. इस लोग का शिक्षा लेना चाहिए. They are doing it so whimsically and capriciously. जिसको पसंद नहीं होता है उसको फेंक देता है. जो अपोजिशन को अच्छा नहीं लगता है उन अपोजिशन को सीबीआई लगा देता है. तो आलोक वर्मा भी उनको सब बात नहीं माना.
Justice has been done. The subversion of the CBI, which was attempted by the Prime Minister and this regime, the Modi Shah regime, has been checked at the Supreme Court level. The additional special director, or whatever he was called, where he was trying to dilute the role and the responsibilities of the director, I think the Supreme Court has stepped in. Hopefully that will not be allowed going ahead. It's nice that Mr. Verma is back in the seat.
That is a very good news. That is the correct news. Yeah, it has to be, because anything from the pressure from the government should not take over these institutions. That is my view.
We stand vindicated today. In his reinstatement lies some of the truths which are hurtful to the present regime. They have messed up with these agencies. They manipulated them. They used it for political instrument. We just wish to caution this regime that if this is the new modus operandi of these agencies, tomorrow when you are out of power, you could be within the purview of these agencies.
All right, opposition parties crying victory. They're saying that justice has been done after Alok Verma was restored as the CBI chief.
Thanks for watching the video. For more such news and updates, please like, share and subscribe to India Today. Also check out our other great videos from our channel. We know you would love to.